This big thing about effective managed services, are integrators capable of delivering them?
At Ricoh, we believe the answer is yes. I think we have to appreciate that Ricoh's long been an integrator, but within different service areas. Whilst we're relatively new in the journey of AV and collaboration, our print business transformed into a service-led, service-driven model many years ago, moving away from a sort of transactional relationship with customers to actually a managed service annuity-based contract.
But we're talking about integrators generally.
Yeah.
Is the perception is that margins are going down. In fact, we're craving for services to be delivered.
Yeah.
We're just wondering whether the skill sets and the ability and the infrastructure is there to deliver them. I mean, you need to be a global player really to deliver them effectively. And never, it's difficult to know what an effective integrator looks like because I don't think we've really seen one or particularly been aware of what they do. They're just integrators, not integrators who deliver services, and that's the difficult thing. It's that transition over because I think we're a bit before that, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we're at an age now where the customer expectation is on a service, where the technology is such that it lends itself, I think, much better to ongoing management and support, and the market's there. So, in answer to your question, I think all integrators need to consider themselves first and foremost a service provider to their customers. Absolutely.
This lovely phrase, customer lifetime value, even I don't know what it means, but it sounds fantastic. Where you're following it through and regarding your customer, not just for what you're currently providing them with, but how you can develop them over time. Therefore, the problem at the moment is just margins, and they're being driven to the floor, aren't they? So it's a question of building on it and actually using economies of scale, if that's what you have, to deliver something that's of value, and you can follow your customer. You're not just there flogging them kit, which is what most people assume we all do. It's just to develop that service and their needs in a sophisticated way. It involves perhaps an element of consultancy, I don't know.
Yeah.
But do you think that's a viable model looking forward over the next few
customer
years?
Value.
Yes.
I think total customer value is critical. I think you need to look at a customer in its entirety in terms of not just the geographic breadth, because more and more we find that customers want us to roll out standardized solutions on a global scale. So look at the entire piece rather than within a particular geography or a location, but also increasingly look across the different lines of service. Lines between AV and IT are blurring. So we find looking at the whole shape and needs of an organization, both geographically but across its service line. They want us to have one view of the customer, so defining the total customer value is critical.
Is that easier to have one view of a customer? I mean,
Well, I think the systems challenge is the hardest one sometimes in a company like ours where you are delivering multiple services to a single client. Sometimes systems can be a constraint, but systems are developing rapidly in terms of CRM, ERP systems, so that you can increasingly look both geographically and across multiple service lines at one customer view. I think it's also a mindset that moves away from silos. I think it's great having expertise and specialism, but sometimes people kind of lose sight of the fact that customers want you to have a view of their entire business. But there are constraints. Mostly system, I think, has been the challenge for us in the past.
I mean, the large integrators, of which you are one, have phenomenal reach globally. I mean, it's just rethinking what your offering is and what your structure is. A bit like Amazon in a sense. I mean, people didn't think for one moment Amazon will be able to perform as it's now currently doing, or have the potential to be able to supply the wider range of services. And I think people have thought about that with Ricoh. It's photocopies, it's other things. It's not as a global integration concern, but clearly that's changed massively. And you're now in the world where, the integration world, as we've seen with AV ISPL, and it's becoming bigger and bigger. Nowhere near as big as the IT world. But it's certainly massively expanding into these probably larger and fewer players who have to think of new ways of making money out of the system and offer more value-added services. That's quite a new thing for AV.
I think it is, and that's why we find it as attractive as a market. I mean, once you look at truly global service provision, there's very few companies that can do that. I think the important thing is not to lose sight of where the customer believes you can play and takes you. So we talk about adjacent services. We maybe it's somewhat like unlike Amazon, who kind of look everywhere, left, right, and centre. I think we have expanded into markets which are adjacent to our core business, which show the same elements of service delivery and infrastructure, both a mixture of global remote support and centralized support services, but also on-site service delivery. I mean, if you lose touch with why customers work with you in the first place, I think you're in a dangerous game. And what they value from us is that mixture of on-site support and field services, people coming to their office day in, day out, but also understanding that you have a global infrastructure that can support them. So when we've moved into new markets, it's not been just about, is that a growing market? Is it a profitable market? Is it an interesting market? It's also where's the customer pain point that we can see within our existing client base, and also where do you have a right to play in terms of adjacent services, for which I think you have to rest on the strengths that have brought you to where you are today.
That's such an important sentence. Where do you have a right to play? Is there perhaps a perception problem with integrators that they are not capable of potentially delivering the bigger picture, the personal need, the content, the service, the other elements that we don't expect them really to deliver, even though we want things managed and monitored on scale? And the pure point of actually maintaining infrastructure, supplying the knock, looking after global estates in a good way, measuring their effectiveness and this, that and the other. There are so many things around those basic services that could be exploited.
Yeah.
Some are, some aren't.
Yeah.
And then there are groups of integrators doing this, that and the other. It seems to, from someone with an IT background coming in, an obvious thing to do.
Yeah.
But I can't see it being done without the help of IT people coming in with different skills and so on. I just don't see the skills in the AV industry at the moment to be able to exploit what needs to be done further down the line in service provision. That worries me, sadly. And that's probably our fault as AV people, not providing and training people up to think more sophisticated way about AV provision.
Well, I think traditional AV integrators will need to reinvent themselves or
pull
die.
the socks up, yes. It's a very diplomatic way of putting it.
And customers are going to pull them in that direction by hook or by crook. I would say, there's a danger in oversimplifying it, saying that there's no value in the integration skills that they built up and developed. That will still be required, for sure. But I think the service provision, that service mentality, that focus on a more intuitive end user experience will become critical, and the ability to support that. You see those decisions coming more and more into IT within customers, whereas maybe before they've sat separately with a separate group of people on the customer side. So as they come together, I think you'll see not only AV companies, integrators reinventing themselves, but I think you'll see consolidation in the market between IT services companies and AV integrators.
That's interesting. I mean, we did think that, but we've seen no evidence of it at the moment. It's either get big or get niche, really, isn't it? It's a sort of odd situation. But the two areas are clearly separate. But you think AV can never be bigger than it purports to be. But there will always be a role for AV specialism provision in certain areas of the business on this sort of tiered level. If you're a telecoms person, or like an OSI level, it's AV, IT, or whatever it may be, or overseen almost by a CIO or someone who might have the old provision, unless AV gets its act together on service management and produces a sort of ITIL level of service management that's on a level with IT. Therefore, there can be much more integration between managers in those projects who can then work together and create that cohesiveness that perhaps needed at scale.
And then there is that alignment, as you say. There are elements of IT that are common across all services, whether it's print, AV, or more traditional IT services. Standard definitions, standard frameworks, ITIL is a good example of that. So that is a benchmark that is already in place and a way of working. But AV specialism, I think, will continue to be required for many years. I think what you will see is companies embracing from both sides of the spectrum. IT services companies, both organically and through acquisition, bringing on board AV skills and AV integrators, increasingly combining with IT services companies to develop their IT capabilities. Again, I think what's core to that is not lose sight of the fact that there's a common set of requirements, which is focus on the end user, focus on service excellence, and as we do across all our business lines, on continual optimization and insight. And if you do that well, I think you'll succeed regardless.